The moment I opened my front door that afternoon, sunlight spilling across the wooden floor, my breath caught so hard it felt like my chest forgot how to move. There she was, sitting stiffly on my couch, hands folded in her lap, eyes tired but alert, like someone who had been waiting for judgment. My ex's mother, in my home, in the place I had rebuilt to feel safe again. In that single second, the past I had worked so hard to pack away came rushing back, louder than the city traffic outside my window. Before the story pulls you deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet acts of humanity that change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Touch. Your support keeps stories like this alive and reaching hearts that need them. Her name was Maribel Soto, and seeing her there felt unreal, like a scene from a life I no longer lived. Daylight poured through the curtains, catching the grey strands in her neatly combed hair and the worn edges of her handbag resting by her feet. I hadn't seen her since the day her son, Adrian, walked out of my life with apologies that sounded practiced and promises that dissolved within weeks. That breakup hadn't been loud or dramatic. It was quiet, heavy and final, leaving me with a kind of loneliness that settled into the bones. Over the past 2 years I had rebuilt myself brick by brick. New routines, new friendships, a new apartment filled with morning light and plants I watered religiously, as if keeping them alive proved I could still nurture something. Maribel looked smaller than I remembered, as if the world had been slowly pressing in on her. She explained, in a voice worn thin by pride and exhaustion, that she needed somewhere to go, not forever, just for now. Her apartment had been sold suddenly, her savings drained by medical bills and helping family members who never quite helped back. Adrian was gone, chasing work in another city, and the friends she thought she could lean on had quietly disappeared when her situation became inconvenient. She had stood outside my building for nearly an hour, debating whether to knock, afraid I would shut the door the moment I saw her. I wish I could say I immediately knew what to do. The truth is, my first reaction was confusion tangled with resentment. This woman was tied to a chapter of my life that ended in heartbreak. Letting her in felt like reopening a wound that had finally scarred over. Yet as she sat there, sunlight warming her face, I saw not my ex's mother, but an aging woman carrying everything she owned in one tired bag. I remembered how she used to bring homemade pastries when she visited, how she once held my hand in a hospital waiting room when my father was ill, how she always treated me like family even after her son and began drifting apart. I told myself it would only be temporary. One night, maybe two. The couch was big enough, and the guest blanket still smelled of laundry soap and lemon. As the afternoon stretched on, I made tea, the kettle whistling softly, grounding me in the present. Maribel rested on the couch, eyes closed, as if sleep itself had become a luxury. Watching her, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't about Adrian anymore. This was about who I wanted to be when life placed someone vulnerable in front of me. The days that followed slipped into an unexpected rhythm. Mornings were bright and quiet, sunlight painting long rectangles on the floor as we shared simple breakfasts. Maribel moved carefully around the apartment, always apologizing for taking up space, folding blankets with meticulous care, wiping counters that were already clean. I could tell she was afraid of overstaying her welcome, of becoming a burden. During the day, while I worked remotely by the window, she searched for jobs on her old phone, squinting at the screen, frustration written across her face when applications went unanswered. In those hours, memories surfaced. Uninvited. Adrian's laughter echoing in the kitchen years ago, arguments whispered late at night. The slow realization that love alone isn't always enough to hold two people together. At times, anger flared unexpectedly, and I had to remind myself that Maribel wasn't responsible for her son's choices. She carried her own regrets, her own silent grief. One afternoon, I noticed her staring at a photo frame on my shelf, an old picture I hadn't yet taken down. Her eyes lingered, heavy with something like guilt, and I realized she too was navigating a landscape of unspoken emotions. The real challenge came when my landlord announced a surprise inspection. Panic tightened my chest. My lease was strict about long-term guests, and the last thing I wanted was trouble that could cost me my home. I spent that morning cleaning obsessively, heart racing, while Maribel offered to leave for the day, insisting she didn't want to cause problems. The thought of her wandering the city with nowhere to go under the bright, unforgiving sun made my stomach twist. We got through the inspection without issue, but the fear lingered. How long could this arrangement last? As the weeks passed, something softened between us. We talked not in dramatic confessions, but in quiet, honest reflections. She spoke of raising Adrian alone after her husband died young, of working double shifts, of the guilt she carried for not being able to give her son everything. I shared my own fears, the loneliness after the breakup, the nights I questioned my worth. There was healing in that mutual vulnerability, a reminder that pain doesn't discriminate and compassion can bridge the widest gaps. One afternoon, while the city buzzed outside, Maribel came back from a job interview with a rare lightness in her step. She had been offered part-time work at a local library, modest pay but steady hours. The relief on her face was unmistakable, as if a weight she'd been carrying for months had finally shifted. I celebrated with her, realizing how invested I had become in her well-being. It surprised me how good it felt to see someone regain a sense of dignity, how kindness given without expectation had quietly transformed my own heart. Still, the shadow of Adrian hovered. I knew eventually he would find out where his mother had been staying. When that day came, it arrived without warning, like a sudden storm on an otherwise clear day. He called, his voice filled with shock and something like shame. I listened, calm in a way I hadn't expected, explaining that his mother was safe and cared for, that this wasn't about reopening old wounds. Hanging up, I felt an unexpected sense of closure. The power he once held over my emotions had loosened its grip. As summer days grew warmer, Maribel saved enough to rent a small room near her new job. The morning she packed her bag, sunlight streamed through the window, dust motes floating in the air like tiny witnesses to our shared chapter. There was gratitude in her eyes, deep and sincere, but also sadness. She had found stability, but something meaningful was ending. We hugged, a long, quiet embrace that carried more understanding than words ever could. After she left, the apartment felt different, quieter, yet fuller. The couch where she had slept no longer felt like just furniture but a symbol of an unexpected connection. I realized that opening my door to her had opened something inside me too. The bitterness I thought was permanent had softened into something gentler. I had learned that forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation, and kindness doesn't erase the past but can reshape the future. Life moved on, as it always does. We stayed in touch, occasional messages about her work, a photo of a book she loved, updates about her health improving. Each time my phone lit up with her name, I smiled, reminded that sometimes the family we choose appears in the most unlikely ways. Just before the ending, I have a small special request. For you, please comment below and share your thoughts, or tell us about a moment when kindness changed your life or someone else's. Near the end of this story, I want to speak directly to your heart. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that compassion can grow in the cracks left by pain, please engage with this video. Like it, share it, and let others feel what you felt. Your interaction helps stories of humanity reach those who might be standing outside a door, unsure whether to knock. That afternoon taught me something I will carry forever. Sometimes healing doesn't come from cutting ties cleanly or pretending the past never happened. Sometimes it arrives quietly, sitting on your couch in the daylight, asking for nothing more than a place to rest. And when you choose kindness in those moments, you don't just change someone else's life, you change your own.